The knock on the door was insistent, a series of hard raps that didn't match the lazy afternoon humidity clinging to the porch. I cracked it open to a deputy, his hands still in midair, a look of tired confusion on his face. "Afternoon, sir," he said, consulting a small notepad. "We got a call about suspicious activity. Said you were breaking and entering." I just blinked at him, the half-eaten sandwich in my hand suddenly feeling like a prop in a bad comedy. "Breaking and entering?" I asked, my voice flat. "Deputy, this is my house." That first time, it was almost funny. He apologized, a faint blush on his cheeks, and explained my new neighbor had called it in. "Some lady named Carol," he muttered, "down the street." He didn't know yet that her name was Karen, and that this was just the beginning of a long, maddening summer. A week later, they were back. This time, a different deputy, younger, his uniform crisp and his expression more skeptical. The call? A noise complaint about loud, illegal construction. I just sighed, the sound a tired gust of air, and motioned for him to come in. The only noise was the smooth, soulful swell of a Miles Davis record on the stereo, filling the living room with the kind of bluesy melancholy that made you want to just sit and think. "Does that sound like construction to you, officer?" I asked, gesturing to the speakers. He just shook his head and let out a soft chuckle. "Look, man, I don't know what her deal is," he said, stepping back onto the porch. "She called about a suspicious van yesterday, too." I followed his gaze to the street, where my buddy Mike's old, beat-up Ford van was parked. Mike, a landscaper, had just finished trimming the overgrown rose bushes I'd been ignoring for months. She got a look at him and called 911? What, because he has a beard? Mike had a way of attracting trouble without even trying. This whole thing was getting ridiculous. The air suddenly felt heavier, the sweet scent of jasmine from the front yard doing nothing to calm the knot of frustration tightening in my chest. Then came the accusation of the illegal fire pit. I just started the grill, a nice smoky hickory scent drifting across the lawn, when two more deputies rolled up. They looked at the grill, then at me, then back at the grill, a mutual understanding passing between us. It was like we were all in on a joke, except the punchline was getting old fast. "Ma'am, that's a grill," one of them said into his radio. "It's a charcoal grill. No, it's not a fire pit." I heard a muffled squawk on the other end and the deputy just shook his head and hung up. The calls continued, a relentless, escalating litany of nonsense. A threatening dog, my golden retriever, Winston, who had never met a stranger he didn't want to lick. A trespassing teenager, the neighbor's kid who I let cut across my lawn to get to the park. And finally, the most absurd of all, a stolen delivery package. The package was a case of craft beer, sitting on my front step right where the delivery guy had left it. I was starting to lose my mind. It wasn't the calls themselves that were so bad, but the steady, soul-crushing erosion of my peace. I'd bought this place to get away from the noise, from the constant vigilance, to just be. And now this woman was making my own home feel like a war zone. I found myself looking out the window, every little sound making me jump. A car door slamming down the street, a screen door creaking shut. Felt like I was living inside a tense, low-budget thriller. What was her endgame? Anyway, did she think I'd just move? The final confrontation happened on a Saturday morning. I was watering the front garden, the hose spraying a gentle mist onto the petunias, when I saw the flashing lights. 2 police cars this time, a full-on response. I froze, the cold spray soaking my shirt, a shiver running through me that had nothing to do with the water. The 2 deputies who had been here before the older one from the first call and the younger one who'd laughed at the Miles Davis record stepped out. Behind them, from the house next door, stomped Karen. She was in a pair of brightly colored yoga pants and a crisp white t-shirt, her jaw set in a line of righteous fury. "Thank you, officers," she said, her voice dripping with venomous satisfaction. He's threatening me with the hose. The words hung in the air, so ridiculous and divorced from reality that for a second, I thought I was hallucinating. The deputies, who had seen it all, just stood there, their faces blank. This was it, the final act. I took a deep breath, dropped the hose, and walked towards them. "Okay, Karen," I said, my voice quiet, cutting through the silence. "Let's just get this over with." I went inside, grabbed the manila envelope I'd been keeping ready on the kitchen counter, and returned to the porch. I handed the deed to the first deputy. He took it, his eyes scanning the address. Then, he looked at me, a silent, knowing question in his gaze. I gave him a slow nod and then watched, as he turned to look at my neighbor. The deputy walked over to Karen, the property deed still in his hand. "Ma'am," he said, his voice hard as stone. "This is Mr. Miller. This is his house. He has every legal right to be here, to water his plants, and to live in peace." Karen scoffed. "But he was doing something suspicious. He has no right to a place like this. I bet he's trespassing." The deputy just looked at her, his expression a cold mask of authority. "This property, ma'am, belongs to Mr. Miller," he said again, his voice even firmer now. "And from this point forward, if you call 911 on him again without a legitimate reason, you will be arrested for filing a false police report. This is your final warning." The color drained from her face, her confident sneer melting into a mask of pure disbelief. She stammered, then sputtered, but the words were gone. The young deputy stepped up, his tone just as serious. "You've wasted our time, ma'am. This ends now." They turned, got back into their squad cars, and drove away, leaving a gaping silence in their wake. I just stood there, the sun on my face, the air finally feeling lighter. Karen stumbled back to her house, a defeated, shrinking figure, the weight of her own vindictive failure crushing her. I didn't feel a jolt of victory, not really. What I felt was a profound, quiet relief. The justice wasn't in seeing her get her comeuppance. The true justice was the reclaimed peace of my own home, the simple, honest freedom to water my flowers without having to look over my shoulder. It was a victory, but a quiet one, personal triumph. I just closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let the quiet wash over me. I was finally home.